Like trashed by more people or something. It's not messed up by more people. You are not right when you say that. It's not messed up by more people. I'm not saying it is. In the anarchic landscape of modern cinema, Quentin Tarantino stands as perhaps the most uncompromising and intellectually demanding filmmaker of his generation, whose encyclopedic knowledge of film history and obsessive attention to performance detail have created both legendary collaborations and spectacular professional disasters. The man who changed the way independent films were made with Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill has an almost magical knack for spotting real screen presence. But this same cinematic genius has sometimes run into players whose work or personal behavior fundamentally went against his artistic vision and professional standards. What's so interesting about Tarantino's professional conflicts is how they show the philosophical gap between pure cinematic artistry and commercial movie-making in Hollywood's creative environment. His famous lines and complex character growth require actors who are as smart as he is and can focus on the story without letting their own egos get in the way. Those actors who fail to meet his exacting standards or attempt to impose their own artistic agendas quickly discover the volcanic force of his disapproval, leading to conflicts that have become the stuff of industry legend. And stories that teach us not to cross one of the most powerful creative brains in film. Chevy Chase comes in sixth. Quentin Tarantino and Chevy Chase's professional dislike for each other is one of Hollywood's deepest philosophical disagreements. The visionary director's opinion of the comedy legend shows that they have fundamentally different ideas about what makes for real screen performance and manufactured entertainment. Tarantino first saw Chase's work when he was young and became a film fanatic. He quickly recognized the actor's natural comedic timing, but he became more and more bothered by what he saw as Chase's cynical attitude toward both his craft and his audience. Tarantino is known for admiring actors who disappear completely into their roles. This was in direct contrast to Chase's more self-aware performance style, which often pointed out the artificiality of filmmaking through knowing glances and meta-theatrical choices. The few times they worked together, they saw a director whose dedication to cinematic authenticity clashed dramatically with an actor who seemed more interested in maintaining his comedic persona than telling bigger stories. Victoria Thomas, a casting director who worked with both of them on different projects, said that Chevy is everything that Quentin dislikes about current comedy. He sees someone who treats movies like extended Saturday Night Live sketches rather than genuine artistic expressions that deserve complete creative commitment. The disagreement became clear when both of them talked about working together in the 1990s. Tarantino was said to have been worried about Chase's ability to accept the psychological darkness that makes many of his characters unique. Chase's reputation for acting out on set only added to Tarantino's belief that the actor lacked the professional discipline needed to make serious movies. What made their rivalry even worse was Tarantino's later public comments about actors who mistake cockiness for intelligence, which everyone in the industry took as direct criticism of Chase's approach to both comedic and serious material. Will Smith. The creative tension between Quentin Tarantino and Will Smith was most obvious when they talked about Django Unchained. They had very different ideas about how the movie should deal with slavery and racial violence, which ended up stopping what could have been one of the most provocative collaborations in movie history. When Smith was first approached about the lead part, both actor and director initially expressed enthusiasm about working together on such challenging material. But their creative meetings quickly showed that they had deep disagreements about how to create characters and how to approach themes, which made it impossible for them to work together. Smith liked hero stories that made people feel good about their morals, which went against Tarantino's goal of showing psychological depth and moral ambiguity in historical context. Producer Stacy Shearer remembered that Will wanted Django to be more like a typical hero, while Quentin believed that telling a true story meant accepting the character's darker urges and moral flaws. Their arguments got more heated as both creative groups tried to find a middle ground between making art accessible to the public and staying true to the art itself. The breaking point was when Smith reportedly asked for changes to the script that would soften some of Django's more questionable moral choices. This made Tarantino wonder if Smith had the courage to fully inhabit such psychologically demanding material. Officially, Smith quit the project because of scheduling issues, but people in the business knew that it was really because they had different creative ideas that couldn't be agreed upon. And finally, Kevin Costner. The professional antipathy between Quentin Tarantino and Kevin Costner represents a fascinating study in how different generations of filmmakers judge what constitutes authentic American masculinity on screen. Their fight shows broader cultural differences in how we think about heroism and moral complexity in modern movies. In the 1990s, when Tarantino first became famous, Costner's sincere approach to historical drama and traditional heroic stories was a big part of what the younger director thought was dramatically false about Hollywood's clean version of American history. Costner liked simple heroes whose goodness was never called into question throughout their stories, which was very different from Tarantino's famous love of morally ambiguous characters and psychologically complex anti-heroes. In the few professional interactions they had at events for their industry, they barely tried to hide their dislike for each other under the guise of polite professionalism. Kevin is the epitome of everything Quentin thinks is wrong with high-end movies. Look at Roger Avery, a scriptwriter who worked with Tarantino when he was at the top of his game. He sees someone who equates sincerity with depth and moral simplicity with dramatic complexity. During the 1990s and early 2000s, both filmmakers were competing for similar historical projects. This made the conflict worse, with Tarantino consistently doubting Costner's ability to embrace the psychological darkness that true historical storytelling requires. Costner's box office success with movies like Dances with Wolves made Tarantino even more sure that moviegoers were being given wildly false versions of American life. Third, George Clooney. The creative disagreement between Quentin Tarantino and George Clooney during the filming of From Dusk Till Dawn is one of the best-managed conflicts in movie history. Their different ways of making movies created tensions that almost derailed Robert Rodriguez's vampire thriller, even though they seemed to get along well on screen. When they were both hired for the genre-bending project, it seemed like Tarantino's writing skills and Clooney's rising star charisma would work well together. Instead, their partnership quickly showed that they had deep-seated disagreements about how actors should handle violent material and dark comedy, which made working together more and more difficult. While Clooney liked to see humanity in characters who were morally questionable, Tarantino was set on accepting the nihilistic worldview that served as the basis for his screenplays. George kept trying to make his character more likable, director Robert Rodriguez said, while Quentin insisted that the story's power came from not judging the criminals or giving audiences easy moral escape routes. Their first conversations turned into diplomatic exercises as both creative forces tried to find a balance between being accessible and being real. Tensions rose when Clooney was said to have been worried about some of the script's more extreme violence. This led to heated arguments about artistic responsibility and the difference between reflecting and criticizing modern society in movies. Tarantino's raging reaction to any suggestions that the material be toned down produced a creative tension that permeated the whole production. Next, there's Edward Norton. Quentin Tarantino and Edward Norton's professional feud is one of the smartest in Hollywood. Two very smart and talented people, they both want to make great art, but they can't get past their fundamental disagreements about who is responsible for what and how much control they have over the process. When Norton first became a major actor in the mid-1990s, Tarantino praised the young actor's smart approach to character growth and clear dedication to the craft. Norton, on the other hand, is known for carefully reading scripts and suggesting changes, which didn't go over well with Tarantino, who is known for being very protective of his language and character development. Edward reads scripts like they are academic papers that need to be carefully analyzed. Take a look at producer Harvey Weinstein, who tried to set up several possible projects between them. Quentin takes his screenplays like holy books and revises them over and over again until they are perfect, not from outside sources. Their dislike for each other was most clear in carefully worded public comments in which they both avoided direct criticism while making it clear that their approaches to making serious movies were at odds with each other. Fans of movies were especially let down by their fight because when they worked together they could have made great dramatic pairings. But they couldn't work together effectively because they couldn't set up a creative order. Bruce Willis is number one. Quentin Tarantino and Bruce Willis's bitter feud is one of the most personally destructive professional relationships in action film. Their creative differences during the production of Pulp Fiction led to long-lasting anger that has affected both of their careers for decades. When Willis was first chosen as Butch Coolidge, Tarantino thought that the actor's reputation as a tough guy would fit his idea of a boxer who is torn between his duty to his team and his need to stay alive. Instead, working together quickly turned into a series of creative arguments that made everyone's professionalism and patience test during the whole production. Tarantino's commitment to psychological ambiguity and moral complexity within what seemed like simple story frameworks clashed dramatically with Willis's taste for clear character motivation. Bruce really wanted to know what Butch was thinking all the time. Remember the producer Lawrence Bender? Whilst Quentin argued that the character's power came from acting on instinct alone without needing too much psychological help, they didn't just disagree about how to interpret characters, they also disagreed about how action scenes should serve bigger thematic purposes. The tension reached its peak when Willis reportedly questioned Tarantino's authority while the movie was being filmed, questioning his direction choices and suggesting different ways to handle important scenes. Tarantino's angry answer made everyone angry at each other, and the whole production team had to be very careful to keep things from falling apart. The fact that Quentin Tarantino has problems at work shows how deeply he cares about the truth in movies and stories. These disagreements show how intellectual brilliance and artistic vision can clash with the needs of business and the need for ego-driven creative meddling. Sign up to get more filmmaking tips.